This is Ed in San Diego, and our special guest today, RonCooper. We're going to be talking again about the cooperculture.com and what does it mean. Uh, so we're here in the what I call affectionately the global meeting room, and I strive to make this meeting place a psychological safe place for business introductions and conversations. RonCooper and I have been doing this for about a year, and a lot of hot topics and a lot of controversial topics on occasion. And today is about situational awareness. Now, we're talking about a business setting, correct?
Yes.
All right, here's RonCooper.
Ed, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to interact with you, your listeners. I'm hoping that today our topic of, I use the term situational awareness versus tunnel vision. I will tell you in aviation terms, and for your listeners who may not know, I was 22 years Air Force. I flew the F-4. I have over 300 combat missions. And I tell you that to say that situational awareness is absolutely paramount for those of us inside the cockpit flying at, let's just say, in excess of 500 miles an hour. As a flight lead, we are responsible not only for our aircraft, we're responsible for the entire flight. Let's say a flight of four aircraft. In this case, a flight of four, I would be the lead and I would have three wingmen. The wingmen are individually responsible and accountable for the way they fly the aircraft, but I, as the flight lead mission commander, am responsible for the success of the mission. One of the criteria for mission success is we have a mission to do whatever that mission is, bombs on target, whatever it is, may be. But a part of that responsibility is to return all, in this case, four aircraft, the people inside the aircraft, to ensure a safe mission.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Three wingmen. So this would be what, on one on the left, one on the right, and then one above or below?
No, in this case, it would be one on one wing, let's say the right wing, and then two on the left wing. So number two in this instance would be on the right wing. Numbers 3 and 4 would be on the left wing.
Why would you put two on the left?
Well, we could fly in what we call a diamond formation, but that would be more of a show formation. A diamond formation would be a wingman on the right wing, one on the left wing, and then the fourth aircraft would be directly behind me. That was, if you were viewing that from the ground, it would look somewhat like a diamond. That's why it's called a diamond formation.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So situational awareness, this is a business setting, right?
A business setting. And let me just use as one example, Ed, the Enron, a very celebrated case. I can also cite NASA in the context of Challenger 13. In the context of situational awareness, Enron, and I'm not here to demean people, anything of that nature. However, from my perspective, and I think it's well documented, there was a focus on numbers, and the focus beyond that became cook the books to make the numbers look good, to bring people on board, but the numbers were not sustainable. The numbers were cooked. They were inflated to look good. I believe, and others maybe are more factually oriented than I am, but I'm going to tell you from my perspective, Enron failed largely because there was an emphasis on some numbers. We want to look good, and they were not sustainable. They were not provable. The numbers to keep the company in existence were not there. And so that became what I consider a very tunnel vision focused on a few numbers at the exclusion of, but not to the exclusion of the other numbers that could not be validated, which incorporated, from my perspective, Ed, ethics. And I want to tell your listeners right up front, I believe there is a set of ethics. There's no differentiation between business ethics, personal ethics. They're all the same. That has everything to do with a set of values that, Ed, if you were in my company and I were a senior executive in Enron, I would want to have the situational awareness that what I am doing by cooking the books might put your life or your employment in jeopardy. And it did. Of course it did. And so that is the kind of thing that we can have tunnel vision on the numbers. Something comparable with the Challenger 13. Within NASA, from my reading, and I don't have the inside story, but my reading of Challenger 13, there was a culture in the upper management that focused on a schedule. We need to launch. We need to be ready to move out on this day. And it turned out to be at the expense of 7 astronauts because of what I learned, and it may not be factually correct, but a small seal failed, which cost the lives of 7 astronauts. There were, as I read NASA reports, there was indication that many people suspected that this seal could cause some catastrophic results, but the upper management would not listen to that. So there was a culture of, I think you could maybe call it distrust, that the lower management had subordinate, had information that the upper management needed to make what the lower management felt were valid decisions. And if there were a culture that, yes, the lower management knows what they're speaking of, and the upper management is not focused almost exclusively on meeting schedules, we would have delayed the Challenger 13 launch, and we might have 7 astronauts with us who are no longer with us.
Ed, this was an O-ring, if I remember right.
An O-ring is what I read about.
A small thing, but it in the wrong place at the.
But and in the context of the organizations will fail at the loosest link, this very small O-ring, there were those who felt that no, this is it is very suspect to failure. And research showed those that knew about this O-ring were right. But no, we have to meet a schedule. But there were those who knew that, well, this O-ring might just fail. We certainly hope not. And to ensure it will not fail, we cannot launch on this date. But their management said, no, we need to launch on this date. But there was a culture, Ed, that led this decision to launch because, from my observation, my opinion, there was the myopic view, tunnel vision. No, we must meet this launch date because of, in any number of decisions, but it probably had a lot to do with funding. If we're delayed, it's going to have it's going to be a bad optics. And so we, those of us that know about these kind of things or learn about, feel that this was an avoidable situation, but it had to do with tunnel vision, lack of situational awareness. Ed, I'm going to tell you, I'm now going to relate it to the cockpit. We inside the cockpit have to be totally aware of everything in our surrounds, the enemy defenses, the weather, those who are piloting the numbers 2, 3, and 4 aircraft. I have to be thinking ahead as a flight lead. As I studied intelligence reports, and I know where the adversary is. I know where the enemy defenses are based on the intelligence I read. I know I'm thinking ahead. I necessarily have to think for the other wingmen, 2, 3, and 4, the ordinance that we have, the mission to be accomplished. Not everything is going to go in accordance with plan. And so I have to be able to react literally within maybe a quarter of a second, respond to whatever the situation is I'm dealing with. That is what I'm referring to as situational awareness. I'm not trying to say necessarily that everyone in business will only have a quarter of a second to make a decision, but as we are situationally aware of all of the factors involved in whatever we're dealing with, Ed, I'll know the impact on you personally, you in this hypothetical case, Joanne, your wife. I will know what the impact is of the decision I make. I am fully aware of all of the facts and factors that are surrounding or that involved in the decision I need to make. And with that in mind, Ed, I need to make a decision within the business realm to keep my business going, to expand my business, but I'm not going to do it at the cost of ethics, which has a very short-term view that I need to be thinking long-term. And my long-term impact is I'm going to be ethical with all of the tax implications, of which I'm going to refer to an accountant who will study the details, but I want that person to review all the details and come back to me with, okay, with this decision, the impact on the, let's say, the tax code would be, okay, can I have the assurance that Ed is going to have a future with the company to support his wife, Joanne, and other employees? That is what I'm referring to, Ed, as the larger situational awareness, of which I want to say again that never, never would I, and I would hope those who are listening would agree, we're never going to violate ethics, because doing so is going to have only a short-term result, and almost certainly long-term will have a very negative result. Ed, I'm philosophizing here a little bit, but that is a lot of what I'm referring to as situational awareness. I am totally aware of everything in the surrounds of the decision I need to make. And again, the decision I make incorporates all of the applicable facts and factors, and I am accountable for whatever decision I make. Ed, that's the context of what I'm talking about, situational awareness.
Yeah, well, thank you for that briefing. So the things that pop into my mind, and once again for the audience, my background in the military was limited to the Vietnam era as a medic, specifically trained operating room technician. I was taught how to prepare a sterile tray for the surgeons by the surgeons who were Harvard Medical School executives. And outside of the Army, full-time surgeons at Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the foremost institutions. The general in charge of the medical unit was the Surgeon General of the Massachusetts General Hospital, to give you an idea of the vertical nature of that relationship and the skill levels. So I was really honored to be in that position, and I learned life lessons from being in that role. And I'm relating that to what you just went through in your briefing. Well, everything must be timed and done the exact right way. No excuses.
And Ed, I will tell you that we in the aviation field have a high regard for you in the medical field. We are
It's
functioning.
them. It's them, not me.
Oh, okay. We are functioning as a team. That is,
Yeah.
I rely on you and those in the medical field to keep me healthy, or if I'm not healthy at the moment, get me healthy. I don't know what's happening inside your rooms. I don't know what's sterile, what's not. You're the one who does that. You medics. I don't know what it is you're injecting in me. I trust you that, yep, you're not going to do something incredibly stupid or foolish. It is a matter of trust, but then you and I are mission oriented. I can't perform my mission if you don't perform your mission. And if I'm down and out because of, well, you thought afterwards, well, yep, that whatever should not, I probably should not have injected that in him. I'm relying on you. So we're part of the team. And so there is trust, but you're not going to violate ethics. I have to trust you that way that nope, we're not going to, or this guy needs to get back in the cockpit within a few hours. No, let's do whatever we can to get him out of here and so forth. I would hope, Ed, that you're thinking long term and that you're out for my greater benefit. I too am out for yours because, again, we're all part of a team and we're thinking long term.
So let's talk a little bit about the business world today and the listening audience. About the audience briefly, LinkedIn during January did a test on who our viewers were, not in the live broadcast, but in the subsequent streaming. In other words, the distribution, the marketing of the programs after the original recording date. During January, there were record highs for a number of shows, not all the shows, but your show was one of them, included in the high visibility about trust, and there were several others. But the audience, according to LinkedIn measurement during January, showed that about 37% of the total business audience watching during that time frame were in senior management levels within companies having more than 10,000 employees. So that automatically says global. Most of the companies are US owned or US based, but has extremely extensive overseas operations by design for years. Further, the audience during January, just to give you an idea of who is interested in this kind of a topic, particularly this topic, 60 to 65% of the total audience were once again in senior levels of management in corporations having more than 1,000 employees. So a smaller number, huge distribution, larger number when the population of the employee companies is broader, deeper, more diverse. They need to hear what you're saying and understand, particularly the younger people, in my view, about how to learn, how to communicate within the business environment. And I think that many young people, I think they're really advanced schooled in tech. So they have skills I never learned until recently. And far be it from me to do anything more than make sure the buttons are pushed right here to get the sound and the video to work and record. But they need to learn how to relate to people. Now, how would you take that difficult problem of communicating the precision and the technique and the honesty and the openness for criticism, being open to receive criticism and then feed it back that you're actually learning from it and doing something, and then winning the praise or correction from you as leader? How does all that work? I mean, we're in a business room setting, as you can see on the screen. So this is really important.
Ed, what you're discussing is right on target. And
Thank you.
again, your background picture indicates possibly senior leaders from a company where depiction is we're in a classroom, boardroom, we're conference room, whatever the type setting might be. But I am in settings like this frequently where I am imparting knowledge and nobody wants to have their time wasted. We never get a return on time. And so, with that in mind, Ed, how do we communicate well with each other? Marty, my wife, and I are DISC, DISC, personality certified. And that is a matter of learning other people's personalities. Everybody is, we use the term somewhat loosely, euphemistically, we're wired differently. You and I are different, Ed, just by the way we're born. And our background, our life experiences necessarily make us different. To be able to effectively communicate with you and others, I need to have a mindset of wanting to learn from and be willing to adapt to your personality. I cannot force myself on you. That's, you're not going to be receptive to that. Other people won't. But as I choose to learn to adapt to you, your personality, that is going to be a big factor in us relating better to each other. In the context of seniors by age, geographically, demographically, baby boomers, those of us who were born in the 40s through 60s or whatever the time frame is, we will necessarily be leaving the workforce shortly. In my opinion, it's wrong to try to force our way or our styles on the younger people because, quite honestly, Ed, you and I are amongst the baby boomers who were invented long before the internet, social media, artificial intelligence, and so forth. I am a believer in reverse mentoring. Those millennials and younger than me, I can learn from them. My hope is they reciprocate. We can learn from each other, but that's a cooperative environment. Do we have a cooperative environment, or would you and I, just very euphemistically, talk down to in a condescending way to those who are younger than us? My hope is we would not do that because no one wants to be talked down to. We want to relationally be on an equivalent value, equivalent level. Now, as I may be in a position to where I'm responsible for things that the person I'm speaking to is not, but that's not in the form of my opinion. That's not a hierarchical type thing. It's just that I have a larger area of responsibility. Ed, there's a lot that I'm saying there that in the culture, on the context of a company culture, people want to be in a company whose culture is very receptive, very communicative. We are accepting of each other. Possibly you and I can be very different on ideological or other issues that are, in my opinion, peripheral. We need to agree on some very basic values. And the values in this context refer to ethics, and I can't compromise on those. I'll close out by saying that I can very easily train a person to adapt to some position. Let's just say a position of I want a person to be a researcher. I can train a person to do that, but the values you bring into my organization are largely inherited. They're not going to change. And so, Ed, I want to make sure that you and I are aligned in our values, but I can train you to be almost anything that you would want to best fit within the company if you're a fast learner. Ed, a lot said there, but that is a lot to do with a communicative, relational culture.
Well, that was very worthwhile to listen to, Ron, and thank you for sharing that. I'm thinking almost instinctively seconds after you began this last section, thinking about the young people who are like my grandkids would be in their 20s now. Okay, so and I have a granddaughter who's 27 and super bright in the hotel industry right now. Uh, they are going to take the key words that you have just said, key thoughts, and ask Gemini or Claude, the AI, right, Chat GBT or whatever. And they're not going to listen to me or you. They're going to ask for guidance from that machine. And the machine's going to zip through emails and whatever, and then throw back summary statements. And if it's done right, and I happen to like Gemini, and so far it's been easy for me to use and learn from, they're going to do a really good job in organizing sequential thinking about how to learn what AI is all about and how to learn what they're giving out. This is the new world. And people in our age bracket, I am 80. I don't look it, I don't act it, I don't feel it, but the clock says 80. So, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm sitting in this chair and doing TV broadcasts with people from around the world, and I love it. It's energizing. And I'm inviting cross generations to join me in this global meeting room. The topic that you're talking about is responsibility. Responsibility to want to learn from each other. So younger people have to teach me about how to use Gemini, for instance, Gemini better, how to ask or prompt it to give me the directional what I need. Now, what you were just talking about as the leader in the very technical approach in business based upon the military expertise and leadership, obviously you excelled, and the people around you excelled because of your training skills and leadership technique in a dangerous, critically dangerous situation. Business itself today can be dangerous, but it's not as dangerous as being going more than 500 miles an hour, supersonic risk. But business today is critical because if people make a mistake or don't understand the trust factor that we discussed in the past few weeks, they're not going to convey you. They're not going to talk openly about what they don't know, even though you want them to, because of their insecurity. They know they're wearing a mask, perhaps. They have technical skills, but they don't have the social skills to convey that they need guidance or help. So it becomes you as the leader to understand that and zero down, saying, you're not responding to me the way you should. You're not giving me your thoughts and your worries about this thing that I want you to do. And I'm seeing, or I'm fearing that I will be seeing disconnect and failure. And I don't wish that on you, son or daughter. I want you to be open and talk to me like you would to AI. Situational awareness, right?
Yes. Ed, I'm going to attempt to synthesize what you just said by relating an incident that occurred this weekend. You may not, maybe it made your news, but there was a 13-year-old child who had a person with a knife slit them in the throat.
Oh,
In
yeah.
this, it was in Daytona, Florida. whether it was at the Daytona 500, I'm not sure exactly the setting, but it was Daytona, Florida. Mom, dad, and the 13-year-old were apparently in a crowd, and I may not have the details exactly right, but I know with certainty a person, and it's a person with a criminal history, came up from behind the 13-year-old with a knife and slit the 13-year-old's neck. Had it gone, reports were a millimeter deeper, that 13-year-old may not be living right now. I saw the news report last night. The who knows, 20, 30 or so stitches in the 13-year-old's neck. And the 13-year-old is living and is able to tell the story. Here's where I'm going with this. The 13-year-old, in the context of, okay, now you must be situationally aware of everyone in your surrounds because you don't know who is there, who might try to have or exercise some sort of nefarious intent against you. So the 13-year-old might say, well, okay, mom, dad, you said I must be situationally aware of my surrounding. Okay, I'm going to go to Gemini. Well, how does that work? Well, Gemini comes back with some sort of response. We who have more life experience than a 13-year-old need to demonstrate to that 13-year-old, how can you be appropriately vigilant, be totally aware of your surrounds, because there might be somebody, and in fact, in this case, there was someone with a nefarious intent. And I am not here to say that you're always going to be able to identify that person. But if we can be, I use the term, appropriately situationally aware, appropriately vigilant, we might just be in a situation that person just gives me the wrong vibes. I think I want to keep a distance from. I'm not here to say that we're always going to be appropriately vigilant to avoid that kind of thing. But I do believe, Ed, those of us with more life experience than some others must show others. We must demonstrate how can we be appropriately vigilant. I am not in any form suggesting we're paranoid about, but I use the term very often, we're appropriately vigilant of our surrounds. To me, that is being appropriately situationally aware. And in the context of a 13-year-old, a younger person, a granddaughter, grandson, it might be appropriate to say, I always want you within, if not literally an arm's length, definitely within visual range, because I know there are people amongst us who wouldn't give a second thought to abducting you type thing. Ed, that's merely one example of situational awareness of which I'm referring.
Boy, that is so scary.
And Ed, it is. It's I told Marty this morning, and I will tell anybody, they walk amongst us. That's a very euphemistic term, but
Yeah.
you just don't know. There are some people who don't care. I mean, how could you possibly slit the throat with a knife of a 13-year-old? It's beyond yours and my thinking, Ed, but factually it happened. And so, again, I'm not here to say that we're always going to be able to avoid that kind of thing, but if we can be appropriately vigilant, and then how do you demonstrate to a 13-year-old who, would logically go to, well, I don't know, Gemini, tell me how to do this. Well, Gemini is going to come back with some kind of response, but yet Ed, we with a heartbeat, we who have life experience, how are we going to demonstrate this? And we do that by saying, let me tell you, son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson, I care enough about you that you need to be aware of, you might not want to associate yourself with that kind of a person. I saw that person look at you in a way that I just don't think that's real healthy. Any number of things like that, Ed. And I am referring to intuition, which I think has a lot to play and is very valid.
So as we come to a close here of this strong program, did they get the guy? Is it a guy?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
And as a guy with a rap sheet. And as it turns out, what the news had reported, and I just have to assume it's correct, he was incarcerated and just 4 days earlier was released and committed this throat slashing.
Oh, well, uh, I'm a little speechless about all that. So there's a lot going on in the world right now as we speak. It's 19 February 2026, and the U.S. military is on extremely high alert. I'm not giving away any secrets, but I'm here in San Diego Harbor, steps away from where I'm sitting here. And we were out walking on Harbor Island. Joanne and I were out walking on Harbor Island yesterday, which is right across from the Coronado Navy base. Uh, and the Coast Guard had ships stationed in various parts of the harbor. Nothing else going on. Normal helicopters over, but a lot of them. And nothing went on. But there's a lot out there in the Mideast and Indian Ocean and elsewhere right now. Really dangerous situation, isn't it?
Yes. So again, Ed, being appropriately vigilant in, yes, I like to be aware to where I'm not on the defensive. I would like to be on the offensive and do that with my thinking.
Thanks, RonCooper. This is Ron Cooper, thecooperculture.com. You'll be glad you went there. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Ron.
Ed, and have a good day.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.